Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Guide of Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast. Well, it's March, and you know what that means. It's tournament time, and actually, today is the day that the tournament is starting. So,
Woohoo.
this time, we're going to see what traffic sources are in the running and how do you pick the right traffic source for your business. So, picking a traffic source, our good friend Ray Perry has this term called the traffic store. How do you pick the right one? It's really critical to making sure that you're generating the right leads and sales for your business. So we're going to talk about this concept from Digital Marketer called the traffic brackets, and we're going to determine some things that we think are clear winners that most businesses, small businesses especially, can use. We've also talked at length about the value of an omni-channel approach to marketing, but today, we're really going to drill down into specific traffic sources. Obviously, you can combine these together, but we're going to talk more about some of these individually today than maybe we do some days. So to get started, we're actually going to have a video from Jen, who could not join us today. By the way, we are joined by Ian and Paul live in the virtual studio, so to speak. So the first question I had for Jen was, I asked her if she could explain the difference between SEO and SEM, and here's what she had to say.
So the difference between SEO and SEM. So I guess the one way to think about it is one does not involve paying money, and the other one does involve paying money. So I've got a great link here that we'll link in the show notes because it gives a really good, a really succinct explanation. And then there is a whole article on this. So we'll link that in the show notes so you can find out more about it if you want to dig in depth to it. So let me just read it to you. So the main difference is that search engine optimization, so SEO, is focused on optimizing a website in order to get traffic from organic search results. And then search engine marketing, SEM, is to get traffic and visibility both from organic and paid search. So if you're doing SEO, that would be that you have ideally in the way that we've been trained, you would have done keyword research to make sure that you're getting significant volumes of the keywords that the business that you're working on the website for can show up in their search. Prior to the keyword research, you would have done research on what the problems are that folks are having in order to search for a resolution to their problem. That's how you'd come up with the keywords. You do the research, and then you narrow down your selected keywords that are going to get you the best results. Now, the best results being, is it going to be, are there some keywords there that the business that you're trying to promote would really fit in well to, and that are not too competitive? So you have to go through and do all that. We should do another podcast on keyword research, the whole process of that. But anyways, so the SEO process, you'd be focused on the website. You'd be focused on making sure that the content on the web pages, that the back end, that the descriptions of those pages, that the content that you're putting up consistently. So for example, if you're blogging regularly, that was all keyword optimized. And so what you're doing is you're doing a lot of SEO work on the website in order to attract the traffic. Now, I said in the beginning, one is paid, one is not. Of course, you're either going to be paying someone or a team to do this work, or you're doing it yourself. And that, of course, your time is worth money there. But when I say money, I'm like actually writing a check out in order to buy some media. So with search engine marketing, you are mixing or combining the organic, so the SEO that you are doing on your website, and you're putting some paid ads into the mix as well. So that is the difference, and both are great. Oftentimes, so both are great. You got to keep in mind with the search engine marketing, with the paid ads, Those paid ads are going to, this is going to sound obvious, but those paid ads are going to help you only as long as that campaign is running. As soon as the campaign stops, that traffic, that exposure stops as well. Your organic SEO is going to be like a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week workhorse for you. And this is what is so great about that. So your older content, even if last week, last month, last year, that stuff is still working for you all the time. So that would be the difference. Again, we'll link a great article in the show notes, and you can dig in further.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I think the big thing is whenever I talk with a prospective client, and they tell me that they've had somebody doing search engine marketing for them, I immediately kind of cringe, because I think 9 times out of 10, that really is going to be heavy on the paid ad strategy and not very much on the SEO strategy. And I think people too often intentionally use that term to mislead people to think that they're getting SEO when they're really paying for ads. And as Jen said, once you stop paying for those ads, that traffic goes away. So, Ian, have you come across that as well, or Paul?
Well, for sure. Yeah, I was going to comment. Sometimes there's these legacy terms that have crept into an industry, and they're actually very misleading. So SEO totally makes sense. You're optimizing things so that you organically show up on search. SEM, though, is such a misleading term because of just what you said, Ken. Like, search engine marketing is actually all of it, like leveraging search engines to be found, right? So when I talk with clients, like when we're talking about your overall search engine strategy, that includes organic and paid. So I think when people throw in the term SEM, it can be very misunderstood and misleading. So I think, yeah, like even when I'm speaking with people, you have to kind of come to a common place of understanding of, let's talk in the same terminology first. What do you mean by that when you say, SEM or search engine marketing? But yeah, it's so important to understand and distinguish the two differences, and to be able to create a strategy that can leverage both, because they're both powerful tools in our toolbox, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with what Ian said. Search engine marketing is,
Thanks, Paul.
It's kind of well, you're so polite, but search engine marketing is kind of this umbrella term that historically has kind of really meant paid advertising, but it doesn't necessarily have to. It can include a lot of other things, where when you talk about paid advertising, it's very clear what you're talking about. So
yeah,
yes, you have to make sure that you're defining the terminology the same.
Yeah. All right. So let's move into more of the paid traffic strategy. So Ian, there are a lot of popular online paid traffic sources. I want you to exclude Google search ads, and I want you to exclude social media ads, because we can talk about those later. But what are other paid strategies that people can use to get traffic to their website?
For sure. Yeah, there's lots of options. It doesn't mean they're better options than like Google search ads, right? So I want to make that clear at the beginning. But within Google Ads itself, you have the opportunity to do display advertising, not just on Google, but beyond them through their ad network. And then there's a whole host of ad networks out there. You can find lists of 20 plus ad networks that you can advertise on. Again, it doesn't mean it's better than Google. You need to look at really where those ads are going to be presented, because it's all about getting in front of your target audience. And if you're focusing your efforts on the wrong platforms, you will not be getting in front of your target audience. Within Google Ads, part of the I seem a little jittery today. Am I okay?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Too much coffee or something?
I could
You
always
buy
use
some
more.
of that Ray Perry coffee.
One of the things I wanted to mention about Google display ads is that within there you have something called retargeting. right? So that's where you're not just sending out to the masses. You're, and within those, you can always align geographies and some interests and stuff like that. But retargeting ads are basically saying, hey, anybody that's been to my website or taken these actions, show an ad to them through the Google Display Network. So that's super powerful. Of course, you have networks or ad platforms like Bing, right? Bing is a pretty solid platform. You can do geo-targeted ads. You can do YouTube ads, which, is that a social platform or is that a video platform? Is it a search engine? Paid directories, right? You can advertise on Yelp. You can advertise on Angie's. You can advertise on lots of directories. You can do podcast sponsorship even, right? So there, you can do blog sponsorship, even things as kind of grassroots like event sponsorship, because that will get you on an association's website. So that's a form of advertising too. So there's tons and tons of opportunities. It's really about, choosing the platform again, where you're going to be presented in front of your target audience to the greatest effect and the greatest return on investment. So there's lots of tracking you need to do in there too.
Yeah. One of the things that that I really like is the hyper local targeting, where you can actually target the customers of your competitors. So you can geofence, as you mentioned, your competitors' locations, and anybody who goes in is, if their phone is turned on with the GPS settings, when they walk inside that perimeter that you draw on your geofence, you can actually build an audience of people who've been to your competitors' locations, and you can even go back up to 12 months. So some people, also refer to that type of technology as programmatic advertising. And so it's pretty creepy in certain respects, but from a marketer perspective, it can be pretty cool. So.
Well, and just to take that further, right? Like the geo-targeting, just because I know we've talked about this before, Ken, you and I, is, for some businesses, especially B2B businesses, where, although it works for B2C as well. So imagine if you're a boat shop, you sell speedboats and fishing gear and that kind of stuff. Maybe those don't go together. I'm not a big boater, so. But imagine you have both, and you wanted to hit up the people, get ads in front of the people that were going to the boat show in your region. I mean, you can geo-target on the date of their show. You can hit them with those ads because they're going to be in that location. Of course, you have to watch out if there's, competing ones, because there might be like the wine lovers show at the same time. So,
right.
But,
yeah.
but then if you combine that with retargeting and stuff, you can have some really powerful results.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Paul, let's move over to search engine optimization. Is SEO, search engine optimization, is it a legitimate traffic source for a small business? Explain why or why not it may or may not be.
Well, the short answer is maybe, but I'm going to add some context to this. Right. SEO as a traffic source, SEO, I don't look at it as a traffic source in and of itself. It is a traffic source in the sense that it helps you get found on search engines such as Google. And that's what SEO does, because if you're not found on Google, you don't exist. Like they say, the best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google. So if you're not being found on the search engines in this, digital world we live in, then you almost don't exist. Now, that being said, there are a lot of small businesses, sole proprietorships, that they serve a small area. Their ability to grow is limited, or maybe they just don't want to expand a great deal. Like they have a decent lifestyle, and they may simply need some awareness, a professional website, maybe some paid traffic. So SEO may not be the best option for them, because SEO is a long-term, it's long-term play. It takes time, and you have to be consistent. It's not like set it and forget it, one and done kind of thing. You have to keep feeding that content beast as it is. So I would say for most businesses, yes, it is. But like I said, you have to understand that you're going to make that upfront investment, because it's not like you write a few blog posts and boom, you're ranking number one for all the keywords that are relevant to your business. That's not how it works. It takes time and it takes consistent effort.
Yeah, and I'm specifically talking about the things that you do to your website. I'm not talking about, I mean, obviously, there are a whole lot of things that factor into SEO, but you can almost do some of those things tactically separately. And so like if you're a restaurant, for example, you're probably not going to invest a lot of time in creating a lot of SEO friendly content to help your website rank. You're going to need to have a great user experience. You're going to need to put your menu on there. You're going to need to focus on your Google profile, Google business profile, get online reviews, get them from Yelp, get them from TripAdvisor, places like that. But you're not going to spend a lot of money having somebody write blog posts unless you're just really a high end or very niche focused kind of a restaurant. Or if you have the ability to sell, online and ship worldwide, then maybe it's a different story, right? But and I think generally, for many businesses, I mean, honestly, if your business is less than, $400,000 a year annual revenue, SEO starts to become difficult to justify in terms of the investment levels you need to make, and you might need to look at some other things. So,
yeah, definitely. In that case, you might be better off with a text marketing program, or some marketing automation to free up your staff. But
yeah. So, I asked Jen to talk a little bit about offline tactics that a small business can use to drive traffic to their website. We spend a lot of time on this podcast, I think, trending toward talking about a lot of the online stuff, but let's hear what Jen had to say about offline.
So some of the offline tactics or real life tactics that you can use, and I'm going to use the traffic bracket here. This is a good list anyways. This is probably a list I'd come up with even if we weren't doing the traffic brackets. So from here, you've got event sponsorship. So think about anything from a one-day event to a trade show event. You've got obviously TV advertising. You've got your sales force, field sales force out there. You could have direct mail. We sometimes refer to that as lumpy mail. So if you're mailing anything out there, it doesn't just have to be a letter or a postcard. It can be some kind of weird shape that can really get attention. I mean, imagine coming back to your desk, whether you're in the office or coming back to your house, and there's a box there, a delivery for you. I dare you to ignore that type of mail, right? So that can get some great attention. We also have public speaking. So you could be a speaker at an event. We've got radio advertising. We've got events and meetups. So events and meetups, a little bit different from event sponsorship. So event sponsorship, think sort of large trade show. Local event meetup, we're really talking sort of community-based within your city, within your region. And then we have something that, the old faithful here. We've got yard signs, door hangers, that kind of thing. So when we think about offline, think about anywhere in person, think about face-to-face contact, some kind of way that someone is doing something at a place in real life. And as well, think a lot about offline. If you're thinking about that, think about virtually anything printed. Right? So these door knockers, the yard signs, anything that has a print requirement is most likely going to be done offline. Sometimes people think that this is a little bit more old-fashioned as far as marketing goes, but you know what? It can work really, really well. And even if you are very much focused on online, sending out some direct mail, physical direct mail, and think about it, it hardly happens anymore. So you really can catch some attention by employing these offline tactics. So Don't give them a miss. Give them some consideration because they could work for you.
Okay, so I'm a huge fan of connecting offline with online just because I want to be able to measure the results of offline, and it's kind of hard to do. A couple of other things that popped into my mind. I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past. If you have a store or a restaurant, use your physical space. That is marketing. Signage on your wall, paintings, or illustrations to highlight, what your brand represents. Tabletops or table tents on restaurant tables. You use your menus but you definitely want to try to find a way to take anything that's offline and move it online so that you can measure the results. I think because that's going to give you the most powerful result. All right. So yeah,
Can I
I
just add something there, Ken?
sure.
The one thing I because I 100% agree. There should be no boundaries between parts of your marketing strategy, right? Your offline and your online are one strategy. They should be.
Should be.
Oftentimes, offline is neglected by marketers and by businesses because it is much harder to track. But there are ways to track. So I would just, I would encourage anybody who's currently marketing offline, which tends to be very expensive, right? Direct mail campaigns are not cheap. So you want to make sure they're effective. Radio and television ads, super expensive. We had a client that was spending 24 grand a year on radio and no real ability to track except for asking people when they came in through their clinic, were they getting, where did you hear about us?
Yeah.
But that road is very complicated now. People hear you on the radio, they search for you online, they see your ad, they, what touch point actually moved them to action. So yeah, I would just say be very thoughtful about how you can track the results in order to determine if it's an effective marketing stream.
Yeah, well, but not all direct mail has to be super expensive either, right? I mean, if your goal is to make connections with 20 people, doing a small batch lumpy mail, where you send something that catches their attention, like Jen said, it's a box or an odd shaped envelope or anything that has a tactile quality that's going to stop people in their tracks. They're going to be likely to remember that. And, if your goal is to just build a relationship and build up some referral partners, for example, that small batch lumpy mail strategy could work really well. And if you have a smaller budget, that could be a really effective strategy. So
Totally agree. Yeah.
Ian, let's talk now. I'm going to let you talk about social media ads versus Google search ads. How does a business decide which to use and when?
Well, first of all, if you can hire an expert, because so often prospective customers come to us and they have been spending money on ads in some form or another. And usually their comment is either the results stink or it just doesn't work. Google ads doesn't work. Facebook ads doesn't work. All of them can work and all of them cannot work. So it really is about the expertise that's brought to the table that can make them work or not work. Because for good or bad, Google and Facebook make it so easy. All of the platforms make it so easy to advertise, but not advertise effectively. Like the big winner in those easy platforms are the actual platform, right? Like in Google Business Profiles, it's got a button right in your profile. Put up an ad, right? In Facebook, boost my post, right? And those can work, but those aren't the most effective uses of those platforms. So let me kind of pull the curtain apart pull our competitors apart in the ring, or on the basketball court before the jump ball. We have social on one side, and I lump social meaning Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, those at Pinterest, those are some of the biggest. But in all forms of those, you have what I would refer to more like targeted billboard advertising. So somebody is just on those platforms. Those platforms have determined, because you as an advertiser can say, hey, I want to target these people in this geography, in this age group, who in some instances you can say, I want this income level, this interest group. So there is an element of targeting, or at least of weeding out some of the pack, right? Determining some of your better players on the court, if we're keeping our basketball scenario going. but still, all it is billboard advertising. It's just presenting an ad, giving exposures over and over and over. And that's not ineffective. It is an effective way. It does work. Social media advertising tends to be lower cost per impression and lower cost per click. And then on the other team, we have search ads, and Google search ads is, the giant center that's 8 foot tall. He owns the market, really. Bing is second place.
He owns the paint.
He owns it. Yeah. Like he's going to get that tip ball. But Google search, when we're dissecting where to put your money, in fact, before I go into that, I'll just say Google search is beautiful, because what you're getting in that is that when somebody enters a search term like dentist near me, painter near me, whatever it is they're looking for, if you align your keywords in your ad campaigns and present an ad that's relevant to their search, you have a highly qualified buyer at that instant when they are ready to buy, right? You can't get any better than that. Like that's a fantastic platform. So we see much higher conversion rates from a Google ad campaign than from a Facebook ad campaign. And in my view, the money, actually, the investment you put in, if you're doing them both well, usually the return on investment is heavier on Google than it is on Facebook. That's just my experience of running these for our clients.
Yeah.
One, I would just add to this whole scenario is that one of the things that I've been working on for a while, it's not ready, so this is preemptive, but I call it an advertising decision tree that I'm working on, because a lot of people come to me and they have kind of their favorite ad platform that they want to go on. A lot of times it's a social platform, just because that's what they're being inundated with day in and day out.
Right.
And so I've created, or I'm in the process of finalizing this hierarchy or decision tree for how to choose the ad platform that's going to work best for you as a business, and where to spend your advertising dollars. And it's really just, it's just, who am I trying to reach? Which one can I reach through this? Am I looking for qualified buyers? Am I looking for visibility, right? There's kind of different ways to approach it. But if you do it right, like you're looking at, 10 times ROI, 20 times ROI, like way more than that even, sometimes you see hundreds of times ROI, depending on what your product is and how good you are at converting those clicks.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts there. Neil Patel just did a great article where he talked, and I think it may have been a video too, where he talked about, which is going to get, for $1,500, if that's all you have to spend, which is going to get you more traffic on your website? Is it going to be running Facebook ads or Google ads? And fundamentally, they work differently, because Google is a pay-per-click model with the search ads. Facebook is a pay-per-impression model. And so, just because you get an impression on Facebook doesn't mean you're getting somebody on your website. And so his analysis was, really, if you're wanting traffic to get to your website, Google Ads wins in most cases. Now, Perry Marshall also had a great tool that he had available. I'll have to see if I can track that down. But basically, he talks about, do you do Google or Facebook ads as well? And really, if from his perspective, if you're a lifestyle business, you know, then social media ads can work really, really well, and they may be better than Google ads. If you're a restaurant, if you're in health and wellness, beauty, physical fitness, any of those kinds of things, you know, those tend to do exceptionally well. Travel, you know, is another great one. You know, so I think it really the answer is always going to be conditional on who your ideal customers are and where they spend time online. But, you know, just as a general rule of thumb, if you're thinking about doing social media advertising, challenge yourself to think, is this something that really is social and a lifestyle? Does your business have a real strong lifestyle element to it? If not, I think you need to take a hard look at Google search ads because of the intention, the buyer intention that you can capture.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing too is it doesn't have to be either or. So your comment about lifestyle ads and industries, right? Totally relevant and totally correct. But wouldn't it be amazing if you as a travel agent are hitting people with ads that have a propensity and interest for travel? So you're hitting them with ads within the social platforms, but then on Google, you're also preparing, you have ads there. So if somebody's looking for a travel agent near me, or anything specific, like if you're a river cruise agent or something, right? You are doing yourself a disservice by not being there. And so you could have, in fact, usually, you know, we I don't know if you're like this, Ken, but like we never exclude an idea or an option. And as a business is growing with us and they're ready to reinvest more funds into their marketing, we have kind of this layering effect where, you know, for many of them, Google Ads is where we would start. Are they ready for more? Does it make sense to put more into Google Ads, or does it make sense to add a layer of a social advertising campaign on top of that? But yeah, there's definitely some stronger industries to be in than others on social platforms.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I mean, you know, social tends to work really well at what we call the top of the funnel, the awareness and, you know, learn and consideration aspect. The conversion aspect, Google tends to really be the top performer. And so if you can marry those up, that's great. You can also build a funnel completely by creating a specific series of ads on social to move people from awareness to consideration to conversion. But that's a multi-step ad strategy on Facebook, and that is not a simple, easy thing to do. Whereas you're probably going to wind up spending a decent amount of money to put that entire series of ads together. But yeah, it's absolutely possible. But I, like you said, Ian, I think, you know, we're going to tend to recommend from many businesses, especially if they're not that strong lifestyle element, that they should start with Google search ads and amplify with social ads.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, let's talk about how does content increase traffic, and why is that important?
Well, at a very basic level, content increases traffic because it lets the search engines know what your business is about. If you put a website up with no content, how does Google know what your business is about? But there's different, so that's the content marketing part of it. But there's also, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, those are all places where you can put content and you can drive traffic back to your website. Same thing with YouTube. Kind of like Ian said, is that a social platform? Is it a video platform? Is it a search engine? It's kind of all three when you think about it. And that's also a great way, YouTube channel. And the most searched for videos on YouTube are how-to type videos. So if you're going to use this example before, if you're an HVAC contractor, there's no way you're going to make money going out programming someone's thermostat. But you can put videos up there, say, this is how you do it. And then, you can embed that on your website, and that way you're building awareness and you're building trust and you're building authority. So, 6 months down the road, their air conditioner conks out. There's a better chance they're going to remember you and contact your business. You can press releases is another way to get content out there. Now that's a little bit different because it's not a blog post format. It has to be done in what they call the third party, but you can still drive
Written
traffic.
about the business versus written by the business.
Correct. But you can still drive traffic back to your website. And the content marketing, SEO, those kind of go hand in hand, because there's some fundamental things you need to do when writing content and structuring your website that affects SEO, and won't go into that. But the content drives traffic to your website because it lets search engines and these other platforms and the public at large know what you do. And by building that authority and trust, it helps overcome that hurdle. Because if I see an ad for a business that I've never heard of, I'm probably not, well, if we're talking about a $2 widget, that's one thing. But if it's a significant amount of money, I'm not going to click on that ad and convert. I've never heard of this business. I'm going to go do some research, or I'm going to move on to a business I have heard of. And that's where that authority and trust and awareness is really important.
So a couple of things there. I mean, one is from a Google perspective, these are common errors we see with websites. Ian, I know we've talked about this in the past too. Not having 500 words on a page, that doesn't give Google enough to work with to really figure out exactly what that page is about. And it needs to know that to help it rank when people are searching, where there's that alignment between what Google thinks the page is about and what the person is searching for. It's really common for people in the trades, which is where we do most of our work these days. They have services pages that they might have, like a single service page that just has 10 bullet points about the services they offer. That's a huge missed opportunity, because every one of those services, if it's important for your business, it warrants its own page of content. Every city or suburb that's important for you to be found in, you really should have content on your website about that location. And it's just a common mistake. People think, and again, not every business needs to pay for SEO. But if you're trying to rank organically in the search engines, you got to have content on your website. You got to have content that's interesting, that people care about, so that you will get some links to your website for you to help build up your SEO. And so content really still is always, when I hear somebody asking about SEO, they rarely understand the content requirements to drive SEO.
Yeah. And the thing listeners should remember too is that you're in the eyes of the search engines, you are not competing. You're not in a bubble. You're not alone. You're competing against other options, and they're comparing your website to your competition geographically, right? So, if your competition has a more thoroughly optimized page on a service, like you're a plumber, and this is like fixing a leaky toilet or something, whatever it is, right? Or drain cleanouts is probably a more common one, but or more profitable one. If your page on that topic doesn't have the content that's competing against your competitors, and they have more content, it makes more sense to Google, it looks more legit, it looks like a better place to send people, then you're going to lose, right? It's as simple as that. It's a competition.
Yeah.
One other. Sorry, I know you want to jump in, Paul. I just wanted to say.
Yeah, and I want to say something on that too.
Sure. One other point just about the value of content as a traffic source. This is kind of the small T in traffic. But when you build out content on your website, like blog posts or whatever it is, videos, it's shareable content that if you set it up right, if you're sharing it on social, if you're putting it in emails, if you're posting it on different sites, you're directing people back to your online property, which is your website, which becomes a traffic source.
Yeah. What I was just going to say is, in that example, if you're talking about drain cleanouts, and your website has it as a bullet point, and a competitor's website has a full description of the service that they offer, you got to think about the user experience, and they're going to look and they're going to say, well, do they do this? Is this just kind of an afterthought? If it's just a bullet point versus somebody who actually has a full-blown page on it. So again, it's really, really important. It's not only from a Google perspective, which is critical to help you rank, but then also you've got to think about the user experience. And if it's just a bullet point, but it's a really critical service that you guys provide, then you're missing a huge opportunity. All right, so
have you seen it where I've seen this on sites that we've taken over from new clients, is that whoever built their website wanted to have pixel level control over everything. And so they built out, basically all of the page content in images, which Google, like, you can add an alt text,
right.
but Google has no idea what bullets are in there. And so that's a big no I see all the time. Yeah.
That's a great point. A picture is not text. Google wants to be able to consume text.
Yeah.
And it needs to know what the picture is about. And like Ian said, you tell it through the alt text, but the words inside of a picture are a picture. They're not text. Absolutely. All right. So I asked Jen to talk a little bit about organic social media, because that seems to be a silver bullet that everybody thinks is going to rock their world. And so I wanted to get her take on, is organic social media a great source of traffic for most businesses? Is it really what they think? Why or why not? So let's get Jen's answer on that.
So the question about organic, the question was, is organic social media a great traffic source? Most small businesses think it is. Why or why not? Unfortunately, it's not. And let me explain that a little bit, because I have a bit of a different opinion on organic social media. So I'll explain that as well. So with the general question, I think what's being asked is small businesses perhaps think if they post, people will see it, and that'll be great. A long time ago, the algorithms have changed, and the people that you may think are seeing your posts are not seeing your posts. The audience that you have on those various channels are not necessarily seeing your posts at all. It's social media is really pay to play, so you really got to put some dollars behind it if you want to get the awareness out there. So it can be a great channel if you are paying for it and if it makes sense for your business. With the organic posting, if you have the goal, and one of the goals, I would say one of the goals in your marketing strategy is to use social media, but to look like, or really convey the fact that this is an active business. We are here. We are, producing our goods and services. I call it a keeping the lights on strategy. And I want you to, produce good content for the social media channels. Research your hashtags, make sure your posts, your artwork, everything is on brand. Make sure that it does represent your company very well. But know that it's the sole reason to keep the lights on. And what I mean by that is every one of your customers are going to have their different favorite social media channels that they may look you up on. And if they cruise past your profile on that social media channel and it looks like you haven't posted in 3 years, even though you're a viable business and you still have your count up there, it's not going to look as good as it could. So if you decide we're going to do a keep the lights on strategies, nothing wrong with that. That just means that when someone is coming to your channel to check you out, you do have recent content up there. It does look like the company is alive and well. And that can be a very good way to not put too much money towards social media if you're in that realm, and as well make sure that your business looks alive and well on social.
Yeah, I think Jen's right about that. I think social media is a necessary evil in certain respects. I don't mean evil in a horrible way in this case, in terms of, because I think there's a certain amount of blocking and tackling that you just have to do to create regular content on social. Just realize, it's part of a bigger strategy. It's definitely a layered approach. And, social media itself, I look at social media really as 3 or 4 different tiers. The first tier is doing that blocking and tackling where you're just getting regular posts that talk about your brand, the products, services, and solutions that you offer, in a way to try to get as much engagement and interest as you can. Visuals, work best. Video and image-based posts way outperform text-based posts. Links always struggle. So if you are trying to post a link to YouTube, it's not going to perform as well as if you upload that video directly to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and post it through their platform as opposed to providing a link to YouTube. But then you need to start thinking about the custom stuff that you need to do, the behind the scenes that maybe really gets people's interest, telling the story of the founder or of key people who just work in the business on a daily basis, show what their life is like, show product transformations, before and after as they're starting, when you first start, like when, I'm obsessed with pizza. So, from the time it's dough to the time it's the finished product, show the transformation of how that pizza is made. And people love that kind of stuff, but that's not the simple blocking and tackling stuff. That requires work. It requires somebody who may become a spokesperson for your business. So social is rarely the free, easy, cheap thing to get a lot of value that I think a lot of people think it's going to generate.
Can I share one of the things I've seen that can work really well? I have a few customers who we do different levels of marketing for them. One of them, they're at a lower tier of what we do for them. But what's really neat about these guys, they're in the electrical business, and they electricians, that kind of stuff. One of the things I've noticed is that, first of all, they have a great network of people. They're in business networking groups. And so where I'm getting at is if you can create a fan base, like people that are passionate about you as a business, you do exceptional work, you leave a great taste in their mouth when you deliver your service. Literally, if you're a dentist, right? Figuratively, if you're in another service. Definitely not if you're a plumber. But leave it. If you create ambassadors, what I see that happens over time is that you get people that fight for you, and they actually lead to amazing conversion opportunities. So as an example, this electrician, we're always on the lookout. So if I'm on Facebook and somebody's like, hey, I need an electrician near me, who would you guys recommend? Right? It happens like several times a week in my area. And it's amazing to see, like, I pop on there and I'm like, hey, you got to talk to Steve at Electrical Elite. And then there's like 5 other posts from other people that absolutely think he's the best guy for that. And then, of course, there's other people spicing it up with other people. But because we're integrated with Steve's business, I actually see when messages come through, direct messages come through to his business. And it's amazing to see how many true business opportunities come from that. They are much smaller in quantity than the other stuff we do for him, but they are still very powerful because you have a qualified person, they're ready to purchase. They've gone through they know about him, they like him because of what they've heard about him, they trust him because somebody's referred him, and now they're ready to try by having a discussion. So I see that as, I agree, social media to me, you have to pay to play, but having these ambassadors out there that you curry favor with can be very powerful.
But again, that takes a lot of work, you know. I mean, it may not
Huge.
cost you anything, but it will in terms of paying for ads or things like that. But you still have to work hard to build those relationships. Somebody still has to be monitoring, you know, the river of social media that's just flowing
Yep.
by
Yep.
to take advantage of that.
Yep.
Ian, let's talk about some high-level categories of potential traffic sources that a small business could use. I mean, we've talked about some of the specific things, and make sure you talk about some, you know, some third-party things too that you can think of that
Sure.
maybe we haven't mentioned before.
Sure. Yeah. And I preface all of this with saying, you know, you have to know where your best customers are because you want to attract more of those people. So whatever channel is going to get you in front of those people, the best for the best return on investment, that's where you should be looking. So I'll start by just laying out kind of the 4 high level categories, and then I'll share a little bit more about each one, just so people understand what we're talking about. And we've touched on these through this, but you have organic traffic advertising. It's not really advertising, but organic traffic. You have paid traffic advertising. You have offline advertising, and you have third-party channels. So organic traffic is really SEO, Google My Business, or Google Business Profiles, content marketing and blog posts, YouTube content, podcasts, social media, contest quizzes and polls, all sorts of things that you can do to create organic momentum and attract people. On paid traffic, I mean, we've covered this pretty well. You've got Google, you've got Bing, social media ads, paid directories. You can sponsor blog posts and podcasts. If anybody wants to sponsor our podcast, we would take all offers and consider them. YouTube ads. And then on the offline advertising category, you have, you know, billboards, newspapers, TVs. Again, we've covered this pretty good. Direct mail, event sponsorship, public speaking, yard signs, vehicle signage we didn't really talk about. I would even add to that, this can kind of go either as third party, which we'll touch on next, or offline, which is cross-selling through partners. Meaning, a good example I saw in my town was a massage therapist and a dentist sharing, you know, in each of their offices, they had brochures for each other.
Yeah.
Third party channels would be things like a referral program, an affiliate program, Groupons, niche sites, public relations and press releases, and strategic partnerships. So I think you know, those are kind of the big categories that you can explore as a business to say, you know, have we pulled these levers? Have we truly tried them? And again, we look at it in our business in our agency as a layering approach. Like, are we ready to, have we squeezed the ROI out of, you know, this one strategy enough that we're ready to put another layer on top of it and keep creating this beautiful pyramid of incoming leads for our clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, just a little bit more about third party, because we haven't really talked much about it. I mean, you've got everything from, you know, the trades have a whole series of things, Angie's and Craft Jack and, you know, Thumbtack and places like that. Nextdoor is an app that's really popular that can work well for certain businesses. If you're, you know, an attorney, Avo, you can pay to have a profile on a site like that. You know, there are just so many of these things. And, you know, again, I know it can be overwhelming to try to figure out what are the best things to do. And I think that's really, you know, obviously I'm biased because this is what I do for a living, but I think it's really best to talk to somebody who makes the best decision for you with the tactics that, you know, we know work. And, you know, even if you're drawn to some of those platforms, I still think you should talk to somebody who has an independent view of the bigger picture. Because otherwise you might fall victim to kind of that tool or vendor mentality.
The shiny object syndrome, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, let's wrap this up. You know, I mean, I know this is kind of a hard thing to answer, but how many traffic sources do you really think a business should pick to drive traffic to their website or to their landing page? What do you use as kind of a guide there?
Well, I look at it as less about how many, and we've talked about this a little bit, is where your qualified customers are going to be. Because if you're an accountant, you probably don't need to be on Pinterest, which we haven't really talked about, or even Facebook. So how many is, I guess, as many as are profitable where your clients or where your potential customers are, because they also have to be qualified customers. If you get 2,000 visitors to your website in a month and 1,975 of them are not qualified, then what does that traffic mean? It's not worth anything to you. So I look at it more as, where are your customers? Like you said, if you're a lifestyle business, the social media platforms can be really good. And, if you're an interior designer, Pinterest can be a great platform for you. But if you're not a lifestyle business, it's probably not going to work for you. If you're a visually oriented business, social media can be a great platform. Hardy siding, or high end siding that has an aesthetic appeal can be great on those platforms. And if you get results from paid advertising, then you should definitely be there. You kind of have two buckets. You have the free and the organic and the paid. But I look at it as, you want to know where, and you may have to try different platforms. You may have to try different things to find out where your customers really are. You might get some surprising things. That's why you always need data. But yeah, you don't want to be spending money on a platform where you're not going to get qualified leads. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So, all right. Well, we are coming up on the hour. Obviously, this is a massive topic because we've got 4 different brackets, and hopefully, with what you've learned today, you can pick some real winners for your business, or have at least a better strategy to find somebody who can help you pick those winners for your business. And with that, if you like this podcast, we'd appreciate you writing a review, sharing it with your friends, subscribing, just helping us spread the word. Anything you could do would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, everybody, and we will talk to you next week.